Hello, this is Public Advocate, and I'm Shirley Graves. Our program is featuring a fine group in Marin called Citizens Against Homicide. They have been operating in Marin since 1994. And I have with me Jan Miller, and she is going to tell us all about this organization and how we can help and what we can do and what they're doing for Marin. So this is a real chance to learn about this fine group. Jan Miller.
Well, thank you very much, Shirley, for having me on. I greatly appreciate having the opportunity to tell Marin County people about our organization, Citizens Against Homicide. I co-founded it back in 1994 with a very good friend of mine. Her name, she has since passed, Jane Alexander. Jane and I met over a long lunch at Dominic's restaurant, if anybody remembers Dominic's restaurant.
I sure do. Long lunches.
Long lunches, and we found that we were kindred spirits, both having been raised in San Francisco, both were Catholic, both had large families, and we both had the other sad experience that I had lost my oldest daughter, Veronica Parati, to murder. And she had lost her aunt, who had been her surrogate mother, Gertrude McCabe, to murder. So as we chatted and visited, her case was very different than mine. Her case was they knew who the murderer was. He had been arrested and he was in jail, but with postponements and different things that go on in the court system, he was not going to trial, and she was doing everything in her power to push that forward. And my daughter's murder was an unsolved murder, and with no particular suspects out there. And I came from a different perspective. I wanted to help people find the murderers of their loved ones, and I was working with the police. So together we thought maybe we could do something to help other families that have had a murder in their family. And so we thought at first, it would just be local Marin County. Then we thought, well, maybe Bay Area, East Bay, Contra Costa. In the end, we sent out our newsletter to over 4,000 people all over the United States of America, also to England and a few in Scotland, and I believe we still have one in Australia. So, when we found the need, it just grew and grew and grew, and here we are today.
We are.
35 years later. I'm sorry, 26 years later.
Well, it's a wonderful group, and I've certainly heard about you and known of some people that you've helped. So we're going to be interested in hearing about the very beginning of this group and what you are going through now.
Well, the beginning, our goal was to do a newsletter, of which I have one here. And
how old is that? Is that your monthly one now?
This one is an older one from 2018. We do them every other month normally. Every once in a while we come up with a hard time of either time because we're all volunteers, there's no paid people, and we get a few more months in between. But
well, you do a beautiful job. That doesn't look like an amateur newsletter.
No, we do a very professional job, and we always put the front page is to allow the victim to speak, to allow the victim to tell us about the person they lost, yes, how it happened, but really how that loss affected their family, their children, the parents, whoever that person was. Because when a murder happens, the unfortunate thing is that you hear a lot about the suspect, and especially if there is an arrest, you hear all about that suspect's life and what that suspect did and how either traumatized he was or how he was raised, and all of a sudden the victim falls off the page. And the family has a hard time with that.
That's true. I thinking of articles that I read. Of course, I read all the time in the paper, and you're right.
Yes. So and they, even when they do talk about the victim, it will be just the facts. Date, time, death, etc. So we give this family this opportunity, and it's a very emotionally healing experience for them, we have found. So we do that, and then if they do have a murderer in prison, we believe, as an organization, we believe in truth in sentencing, which means we believe they should serve their full time before they come up for early release. And we were doing very well with that a number of years back with the first governors that we worked with. You know, we worked with Pete Wilson, we worked with Gray Davis, and we worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger. When Jerry Brown came to office, we already knew Jerry Brown's history, so we knew that he was not going to be supportive to victims, and he was not. A sidestep here, one of the first things that he did when he came into office was to close all of the cold case divisions in the state of California, which meant 440 seasoned, wonderful homicide detective investigators were taken out of those jobs. They were put elsewhere. They didn't lose their job, but they were put elsewhere. And it broke my heart, because my daughter's case was one of those cases at that time. And now we have, of course, Gavin Newsom, who has not yet been willing to speak to us. And the first thing he did when he got into office, or one of the first, was to stop the death penalty. And he lied to us, because when he was running for office and he was asked about that, his answer was, I will let the people decide. And the people did decide. The people voted to have the death penalty. So now we know he's lied to us. So, you know, I have a very hard time with a person who lies to me. So he will do nothing good for us, I'm sure. But
Well, that's terrible to say one thing and do another if you're in a high office.
That's
Is
politics.
that ever brought up? I don't recall exactly reading that lately in the paper or anything.
Oh no, that's not in the paper. As a matter of fact, we have an annual meeting, and our last annual meeting, which was in May of 2019, our guest speaker was Mark Klass.
Right.
And he was speaking to us, I think maybe a month after Gavin Newsom had made this announcement. And Mark was infuriated, because this is how tricky these politicians are. He had called Mark Klass and another victim, Harriet Salerno, and her daughter, to come to his office to chat, because Harriet also is a victim advocate, as is Mark, as is myself. And he called them in, and of course Mark Klass, the murderer of his daughter, is on death row. Harriet Salerno's, the murderer of her daughter, comes up for parole every number of years.
I think we all remember that Polly Klass murder.
It was a terrible, terrible thing. And Mark said that he and Harriet and others in the room spoke with our governor, Gavin Newsom, for an hour about, you know, what they thought. He was asking them what they thought he could do to make things better for the victims, that he was interested in victims, et cetera, et cetera. And when they left, they all said thank you and goodbye. And Mark said he walked away feeling like, wow, maybe something good is going to happen.
Maybe.
And the next day, it was announced, and Gavin's way of saying it was, I spoke with victims yesterday, and I am putting a moratorium on all death penalty. So, you know, he was able to say he spoke, he did, but he did not tell them the truth. So that's who we have in our governor's office. Very sad. But getting back to what we do as an organization, we do help with the cases that do come up for parole. We ask our readers to write letters to keep these prisoners. They're all murderers. That's all we deal with is murder. Keep them in prison, to not let them out on early release, and to make them serve their full time. And by full time, what that translates to is if the sentence that was given down at the time of the trial was 25 years to life, then we believe they should serve the full 25 years before they come up. However, we all know that that is not the case these days. And now with the laws that Jerry Brown put in, and unfortunately I believe that Gavin Newsom is also going to support them, is that they're trying to say now that anyone who committed a murder under the age of 22, his brain wasn't fully developed enough, and that they should be let out of prison. I'm sorry. We send people to fight in wars at the age of 18. I mean, there's no logic to these things, and it's very frustrating sitting where we sit to realize what's going on.
If their brain isn't developed yet, then they should they should learn things, and they should learn that what they did was wrong.
Well, and if in prison they can learn and they can help others while in prison, that would be a very good thing.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that they should get out.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, well.
So we help people to write letters to keep the murderers in prison, and we usually do a pretty good job. We get 300 or 400 letters to go to that prison to let those people on the commission know that there are people watching, there are people that care about this family, and we don't want to see these murderers get out.
This is from your newsletter? Or?
Right. We have it on the newsletter, on our website, and then we have a lot of people that signed up for what we call an email blast. I'm not too good with the technology stuff, but an email blast where they will learn, oh, it's an emergency parole hearing, so please get the letter out.
Yeah, right.
So we do that. And then we work with the families that have unsolved murders, which of course is near and dear to my heart. And we will sometimes work directly with the detectives because the families aren't local, or the families are too emotional, and they want to have one space in between talking to the police. So it's we're very happy to do that. We do a lot of those things and try to help the families to understand why the police are not going to tell them everything. The police will tell them certain things, but they're not going to tell them everything, and there's good reason for that, and they just have to understand that sometimes.
Well, you know a lot of the wheres and whys of things, and you can help the people in that way.
Yes. And we try to help them on an emotional level to understand that, you know, what they're feeling is okay, it's normal, and that men and women, husbands and wives, struggle differently through these times. That you know, fathers, when they lose a child, you know, they just want to go beat something up and find that person and, you know, pulverize. And moms are a little bit more emotional, and, you know, they need a little more tender, loving care. And I try to tell these families, you know, we all grieve differently. There is no right way and there is no wrong way. Just lean on each other and don't criticize each other when you're going through this terrible time. You know, it's a rough time. It's a rough time. So the most recent thing that we have been doing in our organization, about a year and a half ago, yes, it was January 2017, Citizens Against Homicide was given a donation from an estate of a family that we had helped for many years. And when we received this donation was sizable, and we did not want to spend it on daily things or newsletters and things like that. We wanted to do something.
Bills.
Right. We wanted to do something special. So as a board, we voted to use it to try to pay for the cost of DNA processing in cases where they've been stymied. And there is the getting DNA processed in old cases especially is almost non-existent. It's really
I've read
tough.
so much of that in the newspaper where something that's been unsolved for 20, 30 years, and they're able to use the DNA and solve it.
Right, but getting the processing done is problematic. So, of course, first we have to work with the detective, who then has to work with the district attorney in that county to determine that, okay, they're going to be willing to allow an outside organization, Citizens Against Homicide, to pay an independent DNA lab to do the processing. And so it took us a while, and took us about a year to actually make this happen. So in January of 2018, we sent our first DNA in on our first case. And to date, we have been able to send DNA in on 3 different cases. And each case has brought results of different types. So one case, which was actually the last case we submitted, was able to eliminate some people that had been on the suspect list and allowed the police to focus in on the one suspect, to which they made an arrest, and he has since confessed. So that case is solved.
Imagine if somebody committed a murder 30 years ago and they've gone on with their life, they think, yeah, well, I got away with that, and then the doorbell rings for something that you've been involved in.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the other case, they had a number of suspects, and the DNA that they brought back isolated on one suspect. Ooh. So now the police are going through and trying to spend their focus on the one suspect without trying to focus on all these people, because they had so many different suspects at that time. Oh. So that we have not yet gotten to an arrest, but we have certainly made great headway. And on the third case, we have definitely, again, we have gotten results, and now we have worked with the other group, one of those, I'm not sure the name of which one it is, but it's one of those 23andMe type DNA where you put it in and your family is in there, and you look for relatives.
Relatives.
Well,
ancestors.
Yes. So on this particular case, the third case, we're doing that, and it appears we have had some results. So we don't know yet if we've got the murderer or where we are, but now the police are definitely being able to isolate into a certain area.
Oh. Goodness.
So it's really positive, the things we're doing right now. It's it's exciting. It's just amazing that we can help these people, and we're always reaching out to the detectives to say, we're here to help, but they have to come to us. I mean, we can't, there's no way for us to go directly to them unless it's a case we're working on, and if it's a case we're working on, we reach out and we let them know we're here. So that's very exciting.
How people must feel, though, if they've lost a loved one and never figured out who hurt them, and then 20, 30 years later, your group comes up with something. And
well, I'll tell you, my daughter's murder is 35 years, and it's still unsolved.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And, someone fairly recently made a comment to me and said, well, with what you're doing, this brings closure to families. And I said, I take exception to that word, because I don't think any family that has had a murder in it ever has closure. What we look for is justice, because that loss is there forever. You cannot bring it back. You cannot change it. We have our memories, we have our fun times, we have our fun thoughts. But, as in the case of my daughter, she's gone. So she was not there, and her being the oldest, she was not there when her younger siblings got married. So at every wedding, you're thrilled and you're happy and so excited for this marriage and this next new phase of life and possible grandchildren, etc. but you know that she should be standing up there on that altar with her sisters. So there's always that little bit of pain.
Oh.
I try to explain it when I've been to in other groups to say, you have this hand and it's like losing this finger. The finger is gone forever. You still do everything. You still get up in the morning and you realize the finger is gone because the way you grab the toothbrush or the way you grab your cup of coffee is different.
Right.
But you figure it out and you make life work. But you always have the void. The void will never go away. And
there's a reminder.
it's always there.
Every way you look.
Every way you look. I hope just to have justice someday.
Oh.
I don't worry about such things as closure. I think it's a word that we don't need. Closure is when I finish the book or I've finished the newspaper.
I see.
That's closure. I've done with it.
Yeah.
But yes, yeah. So the way we raise funds for our normal everyday living expenses of newsletters and phone bills and all those things is we have our annual golf tournament, and this will be our 26th annual golf tournament. Pretty amazing. Last year we did quite a spread for our 25th golf tournament, and as you can see here, we made it come in costume as a foursome, and the best foursome costumes were going to win a prize.
Oh,
so,
cute.
So we had these great winners, and everybody loved it so much that we're going to do it again this year.
Sure.
And because some of them they said, well, we didn't understand exactly what you meant. So now they know, they have something to look at and from last year, and we'll see what kind of...
Where do you have the tournament?
The tournament is at Rooster Run in Petaluma.
Oh.
And this
Rooster Run, that's cute.
Oh yeah, and it's a great place. Great place. And they treat us beautifully, and they serve us the best food, and we have a wonderful lunch and a wonderful dinner. And the fee is only $150. We haven't raised it in 26 years.
Oh.
It's going to be Friday, August the 2nd. And check-in is around 10:30 in the morning, and we have a putting contest, and we have a silent auction, and it's a fun event that it's all about raising the money. And now it's so long. I mean, when we started, my son was coming with his buddies, and they were in high school.
Oh.
Now his buddies have kids that I'm thinking another year or so, those kids will be coming,
They're playing golf.
Playing golf.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
Some of these golfers and these foursomes we've had for the full 26 years. It's just amazing, the support, and one of the gentlemen says to me, it's like coming home once a year and seeing friends and family and just a lot of smiles, and I get more hugs on that day than any other day of the year.
You do?
I do.
That's wonderful.
I know everybody, and everybody knows me.
People appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And even though it does benefit you and your group.
Absolutely. Well, they all want to help us continue with the work we're doing and help us to keep it going.
Oh, that's interesting, though. We drove up a couple years ago. We drove up and watched it, but I can putt a little bit, but I'm not a golfer.
Well, you can be part of the putting contest, and you still might win a prize. Oh yes. No, and one of the other things we have done over the years, more so in the prior years, because as I said, the first 3 governors we worked with, they would. Give us money, not actually give us money, but there's a statute that allows them to say they will give us $50,000, and we would put up billboards for to help find that murderer of that person. And so we've gone back now because we haven't had any of these monies or none of this cooperation with now our current and our last governor. But we have gone back to the older ones, and the money, of course, is still there. And we've put them up, and we've tried really hard to get activity in some of these old cold cases, any way we can to let people know that this is what's going on. I should share with you our first billboard, our very first billboard back, it was 1994 actually, right away after we started. And it was in Modesto, and the young lady that had been murdered was Debbie Whitlock, and her mom had raised $6,000 and said, I want to do a billboard. So the billboard idea was hers, wasn't ours. We'd never done one. So we thought, okay, how do we do this? And we figured it all out, and of course Jane was masterful at doing these things, just calling this one and calling that one and making something happen. And so we put this billboard up, and the mom's name was Jackie, and we had the billboard up, and then Jackie had the billboard reprinted, and she put it on the carts at the Safeway where they lived, and she put it everywhere she could think of to get this billboard up. And one day, after a couple of years, I want to say 4 years, a man went up to a police officer one night and said, I know who murdered that girl. That mom needs to know who did this. And he didn't know the name of the murderer, but he knew the person, and from back in the day they both did a lot of drugs together and other things. And he showed him where he lived, and he showed him where they were, and he had the first name of the man, not the full name. And the police did their due diligence. They eventually found him in Arkansas, and they extradited him back, and he is in prison now serving time.
Oh my goodness.
So that was our first case we worked on, and the first success with our first billboard. So, you know, it was, those are exciting times.
You're talking big billboards like on a highway? Or?
Yes, yes, yes,
wow.
along the highways, yes.
Oh my goodness, that say you're looking for the...
Yes, it will always have the picture of the victim, and then it'll be the date, you know, October 5th, you know, 1925 or that's too old, 1952 or 1989, whatever the date of the murder was, and the location, whether it was, you know, San Francisco or Oakland or Modesto, and then always a phone number, whoever the detective is, you know, to call that detective in that precinct, and that's so it works. It does work. But, you know, it's hard for families to keep pushing, and after years and years, but sometimes with the outside help of an organization like ours.
And do they call your organization, or they call the detective's number? Or?
The detective's number. And if they do call us, we immediately refer them to the detective, because we can't be in the middle.
No, but it must be very hard for somebody if they think that a guy they know did it.
Yeah.
Maybe the guy brags about it once in a while, or shoots his mouth off or something.
Yeah.
It would be hard to go to the police or something and say, I'm going to tell you about, Joe Smith. It must be very hard for someone who thinks they know who did something like this.
Yeah, possibly. I'm a very kind of a black and white person, you know. I think there's rules, and we all are supposed to live by them.
Right.
And if we live by them, it will be a better world. So my attitude would be, if you know something about a murder, go talk to the people. Go talk to the police.
To the police or the...
Go talk to the police.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
You know, you can go sometimes to Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers has a phone number, and we do cooperate with Crime Stoppers on some cases where we'll put up the billboard in both of our names, and you can leave a message with Crime Stoppers and go forward. They can leave a message with us, and we'll forward it to the police. We will not try to be the investigator.
Just thinking about that, though, if you think that you know somebody who might have done it, or you've heard them bragging about it or something, I think it would be hard to try to tell someone, because then they'd look to you too to say, were you involved? I mean, it must be hard to try to help solve something for just a person on the street.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been in that position.
No,
so
I haven't
can't-
either, but
can't-
I'm just thinking
yeah.
about that.
But I know, like, especially when it's gang related and things like that, I
Oh,
know
right.
they have a very difficult time
Right.
getting people to talk, just because they don't want to be a snitch, and they know, especially if it's gang related, they don't want to be a part of
it, yeah.
that, because they fear for their own lives.
Oh, it would be frightening, yes.
And you know, there are ways to help them, to move them out of the area and to move them into a different location where they're not going to have be exposed to these people. So it's, you know, those decisions have to be made, but the only ones that can really assist are the district attorney and the police themselves. So it's you have to take a leap of faith sometimes. That by doing the right thing, you're going to make the world a better place.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, these terrible things that happen, and you are involved. Not involved, but I mean, you're on the edges of so many of them, and know what happened.
Yeah. The why, you know, everyone wonders, why did this happen? And that's one of the questions that I hear from many families. It's like, why did this happen? And, you know, there really aren't any answers. I mean, sometimes you can put sequence of events together, and you can say, well, it was a robbery, the robbery went bad, they didn't expect anyone to be home, they didn't want to leave any witnesses, so they killed this person. Or it's a rape, and maybe the person that's committing the rape has done this before, and they don't want to witness. You know, I mean, there's lots of terrible things.
A lot of reasons, so to speak.
There are many reasons, and some people make that decision, because we all have free will, to decide that they're just going to do something very bad, and they do it.
Yep.
And they need to, you know, the laws are there to protect you and I and everyone else.
Hope
and
so, yeah.
I think that those laws all need to be enforced, and not make excuses because someone is under 22 and his brain isn't formed. I find that even difficult to say out loud, because it rings with stupidity.
Stupidity, yes. Yes.
And of course, on that same level, Jerry Brown did the same thing at the other end of the spectrum, where they said, well, if a person committed a murder and he was over 60 and he's in prison, well, now he's so old he won't do anything wrong again, so we should let them out. And I think that's equally as ridiculous, because I know 60, 70, 80-year-old people that if they wanted to murder someone, they could do it. So I don't think age should have a thing to do with it.
No, unless the person is already kind of out of it.
Well, that's
different. That's another department.
Then they would not have been charged with the murder. They would have been charged with, you know, a mental illness, and they would have put them into a hospital. So
these are wonderful stories about the work that you've done. Would you have any other big cases that we can credit you with for solving and helping?
Well, yes. Actually, this was one of the second cases where a lovely gentleman, Lee Sampson, came to us, and his sister had been murdered down in Palo Alto. Sampson,
oh my.
Lee
yes.
Sampson. And her name was Abigail Niebauer, and the case was closed because she had been shot by her husband, but he said it was an accident. He said he had been cleaning the gun went off, and she had walked in, she wanted to see the gun, and et cetera, and but Lee said no, this could never have happened that way. He said his sister had an absolute fear of guns, would never go near a gun, and so he had hired a private investigator and presented Lee with a file about this thick, and but there was no answers. And so Lee brought it to Jane and I, and of course Jane, being the avid reader, she went through it all, and she said, okay, yeah, the husband murdered her. It was planned, it was premeditated, but how do you solve it? And it was not a murder. You see, it was a closed accidental death. So police do not work on a case unless it's deemed a murder. So Jane and I kind of talked to as many detectives as we could. She finally found one detective that had kind of a soft heart.
Mm-hmm.
We went through this, got him to read this case, and he called us into his office a number of months later, and we noticed on the box that we had given him with this manuscript in it from the private investigator, written on it was 187. Well, 187 is the penal code for murder.
Oh.
So we knew he had come to the decision and the conclusion that this was a murder.
Uh-huh.
So he said now he got it changed from being an accidental death to being a murder. So now he was able to start to investigate. And the process was rather time consuming, and the lack of evidence was tremendous. So this was kind of a funny thing that happened. So he had asked Jane and I to find the exact match of the clothing that the woman was wearing at the time of the murder, the time she was shot. So we went here to local marshals, and we found a sweater and a blouse, and he said buy 5 or 6 of each one, the same, which we did. And then he needed some white shirts, and we got him some white shirts. And so what he was doing was he was shooting a mannequin with the clothes on to see where her arms were at the time of the murder.
Oh.
Because the husband had stated that she was right there, right just a couple feet away from him, and looking at the gun, and she asked him to show her, et cetera, et cetera.
He was going to show her the gun, but it went off.
It went off.
Yeah.
And so he called Jane, this detective, and said, okay, I figured it out. Her arms were in a defensive position. He said, if you put your arms up and squeeze yourself tight, he says, your boobs are close together, your bra is here, and the shot from the gun, it was a shotgun, was right there, and everything was condensed and tight. So they now had the exact position of her arms.
Oh my.
So now they knew it was murder and not an accident. And the organization did help to pay to fly him to Florida, to where there was one of the best blood forensic experts that would be willing to testify in the case to prove all of this. And any rate, we finally got an arrest warrant for this man, and he already had another girlfriend, and he was living high on the hog, and he was out of the country actually, and so we knew when he would be coming back into the country, and the police were there at the ready, and as soon as he got off the plane and he was on U.S. soil, he was arrested, he was tried, convicted, and put into prison, and actually he died in prison.
Oh my.
So that was a real success story, just a real success story. And I told you we started this because Jane was trying to get her own case through the system, and we were able to lean on a lot of people. You know, it's we finally, in her case, there was a lot of politics involved, and they ended up having to go to a grand jury rather than just having the district attorney file. And so the grand jury came in with, yes, there should be an arrest, and Thomas O'Donnell was arrested. He was tried. He was convicted of first-degree murder with a sentence of 25 years to life, and Thomas O'Donnell also died in prison. So
he was her husband?
He was her lover. He was Jane's lover and friend. Jane's husband had died, and Thomas O'Donnell was a family friend, longtime friend of her husband's, and so he kind of came to help the grieving widow. And one thing led to another, and he realized that that Jane would inherit from the aunt. and he was siphoning off Jane's money that she wasn't aware of.
Wasn't aware of.
And so he killed her Aunt Gert.
Oh.
That was who he murdered, in an effort to have this inheritance move over to Jane. What he didn't realize, there was another heir, and it was never going to be all that simple.
No.
But after all the facts came out, Jane realized that not only he intended to kill Aunt Gert, which he did, he also had plans to kill Jane, and he would have it all.
He would have it all.
So actually, I think you will remember this. They did a story on Hallmark, and it's called Citizen Jane, and it's Jane's story. Now, in the Hallmark movie production, Citizens Against Homicide, and I am not in the story. It's just the story of her aunt and the murder and the trial. They also did a book called Citizen Jane, and in the book, Citizens Against Homicide is in the book, and I'm in the book, and how we started it. So their plan, the original plan, had been that they would do the movie with just Jane, and you can even see the way they end it. This man comes up to Jane, which was supposed to be Lee Sampson for the Niebauer case. He gives her a pile of papers and tells her to please look at this. However, they never did the sequels, and so that never happened. But they did a nice job on both the book and a great job on.
Is it still available?
On the Hallmark, yes. So the book, you probably have to buy it, used ones. Or if you want one, I just ask me. I have quite a few of them, and I'd be happy to send you one.
Oh, how do people get in touch with you?
Oh, you can call me here on our brochure is our email, or you can call me direct. My phone number is 415-308-9413.
Yes. Well, I guess I've called you before.
Yes.
I called you to be on the show.
Just call me direct. I always answer the phone, or if I can't when you call, I will return the phone call eventually.
Oh my! Well,
Yeah.
you've really had some very interesting things happen,
Yes.
and you've carried on, and I'm impressed.
Well, you kind of put one foot in front of the other and do the best you can.
Well, you have been doing that. So what are some more things you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think we're going to continue with what we're doing. We're going to probably work harder on the DNA, and probably try another fundraiser, maybe just to get more monies for the DNA, because it is an expensive process, but the results are absolutely amazing. So we're very excited about it.
We'd have another golf. You do that every year, or would you?
We do that every year, and that pays the bills. I think we might look to just an outreach of donation. If I could find someone that wanted to do a different kind of fundraiser, we'd probably be willing to listen. And
Didn't you have a cocktail party after the golf game?
oh, after the golf tournament? Oh, yeah, there's a cocktail party
Yeah,
and
'cause
dinner.
I think I've gone to, I'm not out playing golf, unfortunately.
Oh, neither am I.
But I think I've gone to the event in connection with it
Yes.
over the years, yes.
Well, if you'd love to come this year, we'd love to have you.
Thank you. I'll wait to
Absolutely, let me know.
hear from you about when it is.
I will give you the brochure and leave
Oh,
it with
okay.
you.
We want to tell the audience where it is, or how they get a hold. Let's see, they did get your telephone number.
So
there.
the brochure, actually, you can go to our website, and you'll find this on the website, and it's www.citizensagainst-homicide.org. And the words are all just spelled out. citizensagainst-homicide.org. Well, I want to thank you so much for having me on here.
Well, your group has been involved in Marin since '94.
94,
That's a long time,
yes.
and you've been doing good work.
We've helped a lot of families.
Yes, I know that you have, and I've certainly read your literature and your whatever, and I'm very impressed. Yes,
Well,
so I'm very happy to have had you on here.
I thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for the opportunity to share my story and to spend a few minutes with you.
Yes, well, it's been very interesting. So, just as the last few remarks, we have the golf. And when is that?
August the 2nd
August
at
2nd.
Rooster Run, and you'll find it on my website or give me a phone call directly.
Rooster Run. Rooster's right.
Well, it's in Petaluma, so.
Well, that I could chase roosters, but I don't think I could play golf very well, unfortunately.
It used to be the chicken capital of the world.
Ah, I see. Well, it is, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So you're very involved now with the Citizens Against Homicide,
Yes.
and you do very good work with, if anybody has a problem, we've given them your telephone number if they have a question for you or need help in any way.
Absolutely.
We've given out your phone number here.
We're here to help.
And do you need more new members or?
Well, we don't want any new members. We just want people that want to help.
Mm-hmm.
We want volunteers to help because new members mean there's another murderer in the family. So those we don't want.
Oh.
We just want members that want to help other people
Oh, right,
and
right.
that part.
Oh,
That's,
so just somebody that wants to volunteer and
Sure.
whatnot gets on your mailing list or
absolutely.
whatever.
Get
so
on
that
our
you-
mailing list. Write letters for us. Be supportive of our cause. Help write letters to the politicians to let them know that some of the things they're doing are just all pro-prisoner murderer and not pro-victim, and that's a very sad state of affairs in the state of California right now.
Yeah, it's there's just so much of that going on, and I don't know. Did you think we get the right stories in the paper and whatnot? With
I don't think we get the stories in the paper. I mean, there are gangs that are rampant in various parts of Marin County, and there are murders that we know of here in Marin. That one trial was going on 2 weeks ago. I don't know if it's finished, and it's an MS-13 gang situation, but
oh my goodness,
they never say that in the newspaper.
really?
They just leave those words out. I don't know if it's because they don't want people to be afraid, or if they're just trying to not tell the public the truth. But it's the gang situation in Marin and Sonoma is very, very bad.
'Cause maybe they're just not sure of it or something like that.
Oh no, they're sure of it.
They're for sure of it.
They're sure of it. I mean, I talk to a lot of different people, whether they're from the district attorney's office, from the police departments, and yeah, it's just none of this gets in the newspaper.
I wonder why.
I don't think they want to make Marin County or Sonoma County look like it's a place where you have to worry. I think they are trying to shield it from the true facts.
Oh dear, I'll go home and lock the doors. Oh no, Marin. Well, you know, we think Marin is a lovely, beautiful suburban place, but you're going to have, how should I say it? You're going to have bad people and bad things going on anywhere.
Well, that's true, and I agree with that. I just think that the honesty should be there, so that if you see something, that you should know to act on it, tell people, you know, that what you've seen. But see, if you're not looking for anything, then you might not know what you're actually seeing. I'm saddened by the fact that I think so much is left out of the newspaper, and even the stories about what Gavin Newsom did with the moratorium on the death penalty. It was a splash for a half a day, but they didn't go into the details and how poorly he treated Harriet Solano and her daughter and Mark Klass, because that was really low. That was wrong. You should not treat people that way. But he wanted to be able to say, I spoke with victims, making it sound like those victims were in agreement with what he was doing. You know, omission, the sin of omission is great, and it's very harmful. I mean, Mark was enraged. I my heart went out to him as he was telling the story, you know, because he sat in that courtroom and he heard that sentence of his daughter's murder, death penalty. And you have to remember, the families of the victims sit in those courtrooms and they hear horrible, terrible, painful things that happen to their loved one. And then if they get justice with a verdict and a sentence, they deserve to have that sentence fulfilled.
They're carried out.
And
yeah.
not to have some person, some governor, to arbitrarily say, you don't matter to me. These murderers matter more to me, and we're going to give them a second chance, and a third chance sometimes. But you, as a victim, I don't care about you. And that's what Jerry Brown has been saying for 8 years, and now that is what Gavin Newsom is saying.
Oh, goodness. Well, I can remember reading that in the paper they haven't done a death sentence for a while.
Well, yes, that is true. They went through this court thing where they had to build a new death chamber, and they had to make X number of people could sit there and watch. I mean, they went through a lot of gyrations. I was in the old death chamber. It's a death chamber, you know, it has a purpose. They're going to execute someone. And I don't know how many people have to be in there. I know they want to allow X number of people for the murderer's family. They have to allow X number of the victim's family, and they have to allow the press, and they have to allow all these people. But, you know, they used every tactic legally that they could to stop it and slow it down. And we jumped through every hoop and got everything in order that we were ready now in 2019 and 2020 that we would have an execution. And Gavin Newsom knew it was coming, and he warded it off by saying there will be none.
Done.
So.
Well, can they wait till he's through being governor? Or?
He's got 4 years, and you know, he is Nancy Pelosi's nephew, so he'll probably get elected for another 4, unless he chooses to run for president by that time, because that's his ultimate goal, you know. But I would hope that in our own county that we would put people in the city councils, each city council, people that would say, wait a minute, we have to follow the laws. We have to do things the right way, or we're going to be letting ourselves fall off a ledge. That our board of supervisors, that we would put people in the board of supervisors to say, we have to stop being a sanctuary county or a sanctuary city, and we have to follow the laws. They're here to protect us. That's why they're there. And you know, it's I don't know. I don't know the answer. I only see the pain that families go through.
Oh, yeah. Well, you see that. You see a great deal of that.
I see that it should be. We are a people that should be people of laws, and we should follow the laws. All of us.
Well, now, you've given your phone number in case people want to call you about helping with your work or any questions. So that's, if you want to give it again, you may do that. Or
all right. It's, to me directly is 415-308-9413.
Okay. And someone with questions can call her if you didn't get them answered today.
Yes.
And if you have, if you want to help or you want to do anything like that, talk it over with Jan, because she's been in this for a long time and has really done good work. Okay. So thank you very much for being on the show. And for Public Advocate, I'll say good evening.
Thank you again.